sorry, and then opened it in my browser here. See, this is local to my hard disk. File, blah, blah, blah. And look at the date and time. See, it's the same. So that is a hard-coded copy of what was generated at the time this page was hit. Okay, and that exists on the server in your cache folder, which is in your install, WebDNACodeSparker install, application folder, static page cache folder. There it is. All right, so that was at, what, 2:15, which was 8:15. That was a few minutes ago. So if I hit this page again, dynamically on the server, live, it generates a fresh one. See, now it's 2:18 in France, 8:18 in New York. But what if I hit this right now, again, before a minute has passed, before that hard-coded copy has expired? Let's see. Ready? This was 2:18:22 time in France. Watch this. I just reloaded the page. You don't believe me? Here, I'll do it again. Reloaded the page. It still says 2:18. Why? This is a time tag, a WebDNA time tag, which is always spits out the exact time it is on the server when you hit the page. Well, this is showing you the same time. It's not changing. That's because it hasn't expired. Okay, but when we hit 19:22, it'll have been 1 minute. So then it should have expired. Let's just wait for 10 seconds and see that. Reload. Still 18:22. Now, boing, it just expired. Watch. See? Now it's 2:19:25. What it was just a few seconds ago. So this works. The cache file, it is written out when it's told to do so, and as long as the cache file is there and is not expired, that's what gets loaded in the browser, not what's on disk. I mean, sorry, not what's generated by all your dynamic code, your controllers, models, and views. So this is a great time saver for when you've got heavy loads or seriously intensive processor or RAM intensive code. This is, and you can afford to have the content served up statically for a while. This is your friend. Okay, so now we're going to do another example. Let's have an example where we've got a page that actually has a lot of code in it, some really RAM intensive, processor intensive, slow code, and it's something that generates content that does not need to be generated every minute or every, let's say even a few hours. Let's say once an hour is enough, or once a day is enough, whatever. Doesn't matter for this example, but that we want it to come from the cache, all right? And because the code's quite slow, so I've set up a demonstration of that. Let's say the code is on the store locator. Yeah, store locator. All right, so now in our cache file, cache folder on the server, there's only the default page. Oh, and we just finished our other example about the food controllers. Like if we go to menu, meal for the current season. So now we're at food, menu, seasonal meal.html. So look in our cache folder. There's a D is for directory, because sometimes if I lop off that, then food is just dangling there. And so it doesn't look like a directory, it looks like a file. And in fact, it will be written out as a file. So if the person goes to just food with nothing else, they're going to get loaded the file that will be here, it'll just be labeled food. And it won't be a directory, it'll be a file. But if they go to a file that's deeper down, such that food looks like a directory, then I had to write those out with a different name, because you can't have a directory and a file with the same exact name. So I just stuck D underscore before everything that was a directory. And don't worry, it's seamless, it works. So we go into the food directory, and then there's a menu item which will get loaded if the URL was everything to the left of what's highlighted, meaning all of this, up to the menu. But if they go to this full URL with seasonal meal.html, they will get this item, seasonal meal.html, that file, which lives here in your static page folder, in this folder, in this folder. All right, so that completes the previous example. So now back to my stream of thought where I'm showing you the next example. Pretend, so now we know that the food controllers they create their static cache files as we told it to. Now we're going to do an example that's actually in a different controller. It's in the info controller, right? In the store locator method function, subsection of this whole page. So when this gets loaded, we want to have our demonstration. So I got to go to the top of this controller and I got to turn caching on for this file. And this one also lives for 1 minute. You can see there. Save. Load to the controllers folder. That's done. That was Ajax that loaded this. So now if we go to any page that is a subsection of the info controller, you can see down here, like this is, see, info hours, info sitemap, info legal. But if we go to info store locator, I'm going there now. Okay, it loads this code. And it says, here's where we have placed our test simulation of the long, slow code. For the newbies, WebDNA not so experienced people, let me show you this. This bit of code here, wait for a file is a WebDNA context that can wait for a certain file to exist before it does what it's supposed to. The contents inside the context, like that, where the Z's are, that code would fire only after this file, whatever, you could put a whole long path to it, it exists. If it's not on disk, then this code is just going to literally wait. It's going to cause the parsing of the whole page to stop until the file exists, and then it's going to finally parse the code. Well, there's a timeout. You don't want to wait 24 hours. If the thing's never going to show up, then you don't want it to do that. So you just put a timeout on it, and I believe this is number of seconds. You can look it up in the docs. So this bit of code here will wait for 1 second for a file named that, actually named that, before it fires. And if it doesn't find one after 1 second, it'll just stop waiting and the parsing will continue after this context, like from here down. All right, and I named it the file that does not exist, because in fact there is no such file. So if this wasn't commented out, like now it's not commented out anymore. What this will do is it'll basically just install a arbitrary 1 second delay in your code parsing. So the code's going to literally parse for 1 second when it gets to this context, and then after 1 second it'll continue on because this file doesn't exist. And you know what? Even if it did, there's no. Oh, never mind. Just cancel that. What I was just saying. It's looking for a file that doesn't exist, so it'll just wait for that second. And don't mind me for a moment. I'm going to turn on something. This is in the system. This is a file you normally will not want to edit. Please don't edit unless you really know what you need to. This is some debug data that's going to spit out. System. I'll explain in a second. All right, so now we're going to our store locator code. And this block down here, this is showing because of this div I added on to the bottom of this system file. Okay, normally, of course, won't have this here. I just created this area for my own debug purposes as I was working on the system. And there's a time tag, date and time. And time to parse the page, just like there is in, I forget where, I think it's in the view file. So this code right here is from the view file, and this code right here is from the system. Now the system always loads every time, even if you're loading a cached file. I mean, how's the thing even supposed to know if it's going to load a cached file or generate a fresh copy dynamically? Well, it's got to go through the system. So the system always loads. But this part, this was from the view file, I'm pretty sure. And that code will not fire if we're loading a page off of the cache. So the reason I turned this on, this bottom one, is so we can compare the two. And the difference between them should be not so much, except for any arbitrary time delay that we've installed. Like, let's comment this out again. So now there's no arbitrary 1 second delay. Reload this store locator page. I just did, you see? 251 and 35 seconds, 251 and 35 seconds. At the time that this was hit, it thought that 8 seconds had passed, and then when this one had hit it, I mean 0.08 seconds had passed, and then when it got to this one, it was 0.15. So not much difference. It's just, a little bit of time to get from this bit of code to that bit of code. But basically, this whole file, the system part of the code and the controller view output as well, that came. Sorry, I get tripped up when I'm speaking. Anyway, 52 seconds and 19, 52:35, so it has not yet expired. I'm going to go ahead and let it expire so we can have the complete thought here. 31, 32, 34, 35. Okay, the cache copy just expired. Load this page. Okay, 252 and 38. What was in New York? 852 and 38. 22, okay. So now we load this page again, and it's within the 1 minute range that the cached copy is not expired. It's still valid. Let's see what happens. Still says 252:38. This is because it's coming off of the hard disk, the cached static copy. But the server, I mean the system code is still fresh every time. Do it again. So this part is not going to change as long as it's coming from the cache, and this part is going to change as long as it's anytime, because the system's always loaded. See? Every time I hit this link, the top doesn't change. The top time doesn't change, but the bottom one does. Once I get to 38 seconds, though, watch what happens. 37, 38, 39. Now they should both change. They do. Now they both changed, and now they're equal again because the cache copy expired. All right, big deal, right? But if you've got long, slow code, which this is simulating, which is a burden for your server during high traffic situations. So now we've introduced this arbitrary 1 second delay. And the cache copy has not yet expired. See? Cache copy is still being loaded. See that? The server time's changing, but the cache copy's not. I'm reloading. I'm doing keystrokes, you can't see it, but now I'll do it with the mouse click so you can see it.